Hello, and welcome to the 2019 year in review. I am excited to have you all here. This webinar is for people who want to make a difference in their lives, who are tired of not manifesting, who have been looking to make change, who believe in the power of thought, and who are excited to take a look at their past year in a whole new way, in a way that's going to light them up and set them up for an incredible fiery 2020. So if you are that kind of person, then you are absolutely in the right place. Here's what you're going to learn in the next hour. We're going to learn and talk about the power of shifting your mental focus, specifically shifting from all of those things that you do wrong, all of those challenges, into all of the things that you do right, as well as really paying attention to your small wins and your celebrations. Really excited to help you shift your focus, shift your attention to the things that really, really matter, even though we've been conditioned to look at it in different ways. I'm going to talk a little bit about how our brain has been conditioned to set us up really for failure, unfortunately. But the cool thing is that we are evolving as human beings. We have a better understanding of the way that the brain works, and we now get to use the brain in ways that we deliberately use. In other words, we deliberately steer the brain instead of it always steering us. So I'm excited to share some of those insights with you as well. You'll also learn an effective strategy for reviewing where you've come from and being able to use that so you can plan it into a future year, an upcoming year that again is filled with fire. That's what I really want to do. This is like the precursor to setting you up for a really fiery 2020, an exciting 2020, a way of living that is setting you up for thriving as opposed to just surviving. That's one of my, well, I really geek out on helping people thrive. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And I want to help you increase momentum towards achieving the life that you really want, as opposed to living in a life that makes you feel stuck, like, oh, here I am again. I am surprised that I'm spending another year living with these same limiting thoughts. I'm continuing to live in a job that I don't like, that doesn't support me very well. I don't know, does that sound anything like any of your thoughts? Or maybe you live in a house you no longer want to live in, or you haven't achieved the fitness that you've thought that you could achieve, or you're in a relationship that is a dead end, or you haven't found the right relationship. You know, whatever it is that you're searching for, that it's I once read this study once. They said that the greatest stressors aren't like these really big stressors. It's the little ones that remain consistent time and time and time again. And the big example that I have for that was the place I worked with at the time when I read this article. It was really insightful, actually, had a printer that, like a copier, you know, that kept breaking down. And when I needed to use the copier, I literally had to walk about 5 minutes to get to the copier. And then when I would get there, it wouldn't work. And it was so incredibly frustrating. And to have one situation like that isn't such a big deal. And to have two isn't such a big deal. Three, you know, but when it's consistent is when the stress really just jacks up and that cortisol gets released into your system, and then it feels like you're crying over spilled milk, but it's that consistent stress that actually takes the toll on you. And so it's much like that in our lives too. It's that consistent stress of not achieving the things that you want to achieve that tends to get you down the most. The thing that's truly causing the biggest problem or the biggest stress, though, is the judgment that we place on ourselves for not achieving the things that we think that we should be achieving. Judgment that sounds something like, I can't believe I'm in this same situation another year. Or I must not be smart enough. I must not be bright enough. I must not be thin enough. I must not be fit enough. I must not be la, 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 whatever the not enough isms are. So one of the things that I want to share with you tonight too is how we can slow down those thoughts, and also how those judgments are exactly what's keeping us from achieving what it is that we want. When we begin to release the judgment, and I know, easier said than done, but when we begin to release the judgment, it opens up this whole room of possibility that says, now I can be a deliberate manifester. And that's the life of thriving. When we can be a deliberate manifester, we get to manifest what we want on purpose because we're thinking on purpose and we're feeling on purpose, and that's pre-paving our progress. That's exactly what we're going to be focusing on tonight. So I'm excited to get started with you on that. I also want you to know that once you adapt some of these pieces that I'm teaching you tonight, it's going to get easier and easier and easier to be that deliberate manifester. You're going to think back on the ways that you used to think and go, oh my gosh, no wonder I was so stuck. I was beating myself up with a whip over the back, and I thought that that was going to be motivating me to move forward. Well, it doesn't work that way. It actually keeps us more and more stuck. It ignites that judgment voice, and judgment creates lack of momentum. Lack of momentum creates paralysis. So we want to keep the momentum going. And the way we do that is by staying inspired by the positive things that are happening in our lives, turning our lens, our focus to be paying attention to the small wins and the celebrations along the way. So while we go in a little while into your 2019 review, this strategy that I've created for your review, I'm going to be challenging you to only be thinking about the positive. Yep, I am. And you might think, oh, that's so Pollyannish. Jill, come on, really? We can't just be thinking about the positive. Well, guess what? You can, and why not? I mean, you think about the negatives a lot, right? So why not take a little time away from the negatives and see what it feels like to put on the shoes of the positive and only focus on the positive? We'll talk a little bit more about that as we get going as well. The result of doing this is that it's going to make it that much easier to stay in an inspired, motivated mindset and physical energy. And it's not going to take so much effort to have to get through. In fact, what I really want you to be able to do is to get beyond having to force anything, because you're so fantastically motivated and inspired to go and do something organically from your insides, from this internal space, rather than it having to be this external force. It's that external force that will put us into burnout each and every time, no matter what it is that you want to do. If you're trying to get a new relationship, or you're trying to go for that job promotion, or you're trying to run a 5K faster, or climb a 14er, anything that comes from extra force is going to deplete energy from you as opposed to give you energy from the inside. That's our ultimate goal, is to have that inspired energy from within, which raises our vibration. We'll talk a little bit about vibration too. So hi, everybody. I'm Jill Summers, and I'm coming to you from Boulder, Colorado. It's been a really long time since I've done a webinar. I'm just going to be really super truthful and honest and transparent here. I am nervous as hell. I am. It's been years since I've done a webinar. I'm in front of people often, and so I do talks and I do presentations and so forth, but it's been a long time since I've done this. So thank you very much and for being here, and I hope that you will suspend some judgment on me as well. So I am looking at a few notes because I want to make sure that I stay on track. I hope you don't mind that I'm doing that. You can't see them. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes here that you can't see, but a little bit about me. Newly to Boulder, Colorado. I moved here about 2 years ago. I was in my 50s, and I came home to my honey one day after taking another trip out here, and I said, you know what, I'm done living in Wisconsin, and I love Wisconsin. It's absolutely a fantastic place. We loved where we lived. I just feel like I am missing something. That something was the mountains. For me, that has been my superpower is the mountains. I absolutely love everything about the mountains. I love trail running. I love skiing. I love horses. I love dogs. This lifestyle in this area has always called me to it. And I'd been excited to live here for 27 years. I actually lived out here after I graduated college, and then I moved back to Milwaukee and got a full-time job and did the family thing, and always thought that I would get back here sooner than I did, but excited that I'm back here. The reason why that story is important is I want to share with you how I was able to change my mind and actually make space for making that shift, because that was a big shift to move, 1,000 miles at the age of 50 and turn our lives around. So it was absolutely worth it. And we had to really have that conversation and say, we're going to make this a lot of fun. We're going to focus on the fun part of it, because this is what we know. We know that what we focus on increases. So if we can focus on the fun aspects of it, the challenging aspects don't rear their head quite so much. I mean, they might still be there, but it's what you focus on is what actually takes up the most space. So we decided to focus on the fun of it, and we had a little party on while we were packing and while we were moving on out here. So I'll share a little bit more about that with you. I'm a self-professed transformation geek for a lot of years. I feel like people didn't understand me. I started this mindfulness journey honestly when I was about 25, and it was sort of tough back then to have conversation with my peers, my friends, because they're like, Jill, I don't get it. Oh, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And finding sort of that crowd that did get it was a bit challenging. I got my undergrad in exercise science, but then I got my master's degree in counseling psych and spiritual psych. And so having some of those awareness-based psychological talks with friends was really interesting. And what I have found is the reason I'm telling you this is because we get to celebrate now that there is an awareness around mindfulness and spirituality, how we can bring spirituality into our lives and really make it work for us in a not necessarily religious, organized fashion. And if it is religious and organized and it works for you, that's great too. But I love how we have evolved into a sort of a expanded way of thinking, a growth mindset way of thinking. And it's much easier now to have open conversation like this with people. And I'm just so excited to be able to share my life insights and the things that I've been learning through my 3 decades of study. I've been studying psychology and physiology and kinesiology and spirituality and goal setting and success principles and, you name it, anything in the area of life transformation, I've been doing it. So to be able to share some of that with all of you is really my passion. I believe that that's why I'm here. I believe that that's why I came to this earth, was to be able to share that insight with people and to help them make transformational changes in their own lives and make it a little bit easier for them along the way. Over the 2 decades, I've worked with I honestly just added this up prior to tonight prior to our session tonight, because in my head I came up with the number and then I thought that was exaggerating or I was not telling the truth, but it is the truth. Over the last 25 years, I've worked with more than 5,000 students and clients, college students. And that's really exciting. What's exciting about that for me is I've been able to get this really expansive view of the human condition and be able to tweak out some of the really common themes and threads that a lot of people are working with, and recognizing that for the most part, people really do want to feel happier. And sometimes they're really, really happy. I have a great story of this woman I was working with, and she thought she wanted some transformational coaching. And when I was working with her, she had all this resistance, and she says, oh yeah, well, I already have that. I don't need that. I go, okay, well, what about this? Oh yeah, I already have that. Well, what about that? Oh, I already have that. I'm like, well, okay, then what is it? She goes, well, I thought this whole transformation thing and this joy thing was about wanting something that I don't have. Think about that. That's the human psyche, always setting us up for having to have more before we feel joy. And that's just a bullshit story. We can have joy right now. In fact, it's one of the best ways to achieve something that you want is to already be in the joy. So what we're trying to dispel is having to have this outcome-based manifestation in order to feel joy. And quite honestly, it's just the opposite. We want to put ourselves in a joy-filled place, and that's going to get us to a manifestation that much sooner and that much easier and with a heck of a lot more fun. So my hope really is to help you navigate through some of this with some very simple mental shifts and changes, different ways that we think about things. And certainly if you have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat below. And before we get going any further, I really want to see who is here with us tonight. So if you could put your name in the chat, you should see that down at the bottom, a nice little chat box. You can put your name in there and then let us know where you are watching us from. So I was going to say, and let us know what you're wearing, but that sounded really, really weird. So now I said it. But I'm thinking, like, I have visions of people being in their pajamas watching us, being on this webinar with us. Because we have people from all of the different time zones in the United States. We have East Coast, we have Central, we have Mountain, and we have Pacific. So some people are getting ready to go to bed, the people there on the East Coast, and people on the Pacific Coast are just getting home from work and getting settled in. So I would love to see, trying to get my box over here. There we go. Now I can see who's chatting and who's here with us. So go ahead and put your name in that little box down there. You see on the bottom banner, you see chat. If you just click on that and then you go on over to the right, it says type a message here and you can put your name in there and you can tell us where you're coming from. Just put out a big old shout like, hey, I'm here with you, so that I know that I'm not speaking to an empty room. All right, so I'm going to be watching for your names and your whereabouts as we go along. All right, so if you're ready to dive in, I'm ready to dive in. Let me just grab this. Here we go. All right, so we have a bit of preparation that we want to do before we get started into the next step, and that preparation is for you to stand up. Yep. I want you to stand up, even if you're sitting on your bed and you're all comfy cozy. If you're sitting at a coffee shop and you're all comfy cozy, whatever that might be, go ahead and stand. I'm going to do it too. So I'm with you. I want you to stand up. Let me move my screen a little bit here and take a big deep breath in through your nose and a big exhale out. And I just want you to shake out your body. Yep. Now take a deep breath in and reach up nice and tall. And on the exhale, just shake out those arms. Shake off that day. What we're doing is getting you out of your mind and getting you into your head. And this is a really important precursor for doing any kind of insight work like we're going to be doing. So once again, big deep breath. And let the arms fall. Shake it out. Yeah. Shake out your legs, stomp your feet. Little jog in place, couple jumpy jacks. Little shake, shake, shake. All right. And then when you feel like you're ready, you can come on back to your seat. But you also need to bring with you some paper and something to write with. So if you don't have that, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to go ahead and grab paper and pencil, because we are going on a journey together and you're going to be doing some writing along the way. That's going to be part of the insight coaching for tonight. That'll give you a nice big overview of your 2019. And then you'll have those notes forever to go back and take a look at. And that's going to be really helpful for you when you start to go into 2020 prep and 2020 planning, because then you're going to be able to come back and take a look at these notes and see what kinds of things came up for you while we were doing this review. All right, so ready? I want you to close your eyes for a moment and take in a big, deep 5-phase breath. If you don't know what a 5-phase breath is, it's It's a yogic breath. Some of you might know the yogic breath. It's also called a diaphragmatic breath. And it's a big full breath in through your nose. You fill your belly. So the belly actually expands outward. It doesn't pull in and up like a lot of people think about deep breath. It expands outward and the lower chest rises, the upper chest rises, and you open your throat and a big fat exhale out of an open mouth. And again, big full inhale through your nose. And a big exhale out of your mouth. And one more of those. Big exhale out of your mouth. Excellent. And now, feel yourself settle down into your body and out of your mind, softening your thoughts, allowing yourself to get in touch with what you're experiencing and feeling in your body. Give yourself permission to turn up the volume of your thoughts and just become the observer, as opposed to someone who might be judging or expecting a particular thought to arise. Just become the observer. And take in another big deep breath. And let yourself shift your attention to your emotions, to your feelings. And once again, become that observer, as opposed to trying to figure out a particular feeling, particular emotion. And taking a big deep breath again and shift your attention to your physical body and just notice what you're experiencing in your physical body. You might be relaxed and calm. You might be experiencing your breath. And taking a deep breath and shift your attention now to your spirit or your soul. Just notice what you're experiencing in your spirit, your soul. This one tends to be a little tougher for some people to put into words. Typically, it's a sensation of being connected or love, expansion. The opposite could be feeling alone, isolated, limited. Good. So this is a very, very important precursor to doing any kind of insightful review. When we skip these steps, we skip the moving all the energy out of the body, we skip the breath, we skip the connection to the body, then the review all happens from the mind. It all happens from the thought. It all happens from the ego. And that doesn't necessarily set us up very well. So what we really want to do, really important, is to give ourselves the opportunity to settle in, settle out of the day, settle on the inside before you begin to really do some of that review. So our next step here is to take a look at the system that we're going to be using for our review process. So I'm going to share my screen with you so you can see. Give me just a moment as I bring this up. Okay. So I'm not exactly sure if you're seeing the slideshow that I have up here, but this will work too. This is the system that I want to be using today to help you review your 2019. We're going to be working in 5 different circles of life. The first one is the self. The second one is your external self. So this is more like your internal self, and I'll explain these a little bit more as we go into this. This is just an overview. And then community, and then the world. So this is a great time to have your paper and pencil with you, because I'm going to have you do some journaling. I'm going to describe each one of these circles, and then you're going to take the time to do some reflection on your own about how you feel your 2019 was. But remember what the rule was? You're only able to review the positive. You're only able to take a look at what you liked in each of those categories in 2019. Now, here's what I want you to really pay attention to. Notice if, not if, when those gremlins start to come in. The gremlins are those negative voices that come in and say, oh yeah, but what about this? And what about that? And blah, 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 blah. And some of us have gremlin voices that are really, really, really loud. It might be you, or maybe you have a friend that's like that, and you find that when you talk with this friend, all they can talk about is all of the problems that are going on in their lives and none of the joys or none of the gratitudes that are happening. So what happens when we do that, when we only fuel the gremlins, we only fuel the challenges, is we literally reframe our brain to be able to only think about those. Think about that. The more we think about the negative, the more we're reframing the brain to think about the negative. There really are physiological changes that happen in the brain that will then set you up for being able to think that negative thought more and more and more. And this sucks. like haven't you ever sometimes been like, I'm going to be really positive, I'm going to have a really great time tonight, and I'm going to really be thinking on my gratitudes and my gifts and my joys, and all of a sudden these negative thoughts start coming in and they steal the show. Well, that's not because you're broken, you're a bad person. It's just because those negative thoughts have been getting a lot of attention over the years, and they have set up neural pathways. And once the neural pathways are created, it's like a super highway. The thought actually whoosh flies right through it super easy. So what we're doing tonight is practicing just the opposite. We're practicing building up those positive neural pathways. And here's the really cool thing. Science has shown that the pathways that are not used can die away. So what they're saying is, and showing, is that the brain is malleable. What does that mean? The brain literally can change. Physiology of the brain can change. And this doesn't stop when we're teenagers. This doesn't stop at age 40. This doesn't stop at age 52. It stops when we die. Well, let me say that differently. It stops when we stop changing it. So if you stopped changing your thoughts a long time ago, your brain is already dying. But there's no reason you can't get it back. And this is a really great practice that we're going to be doing right now that will help you start doing that or doing that more. Okay, so by now you probably have your paper and you have your pen and everything with you. Let's go ahead and walk through this system. So this first one, this first circle of life, what I want you to do is think back onto your into your 2019. Literally take a deep breath, and you can close your eyes even if you'd like, and go back to January of 2019. And I want you to start reflecting on, what were your feelings and thoughts a year ago? What were you thinking this time a year ago? It was winter, the days were shorter, just coming off the holidays like you are right now. What were some of the feelings and the thoughts that were taking up a big part of your life at that time? Were you feeling lonely? Were you feeling excited? Did you have thoughts of excitement for the year to come, or thoughts of dread? Or were you thinking a lot about expanding yourself, or not thinking about that at all? You know, that's quite possible and quite prevalent with a lot of people. They don't think a whole lot about being in control of their thoughts. They just sort of let them be reflexive. So start thinking about that, and then think forward through your year. How did your feelings and thoughts begin to change? And again, we're looking at the positives here. So what were some of the things that happened in your life that changed your feelings and thoughts? I can give you an example from my life. I last year added going on retreats, taking ladies on retreats. So we did a retreat to Mallorca, Spain, and did a bike trip there. It was a mindfulness adventure. And at the start of the year, I was in a lot of doubt, like, how am I going to pull this off? And I've not done this, and I've been there, but I don't really know everything about it, and maybe I should wait until I know everything about it. And my thoughts were really filled with doubt. And I noticed probably all of January that they were more about the doubt than they were about the excitement. And as the months went by and I got more and more aware of how these thoughts were really taking up space in my mind, my coach helped me really pay attention to what were the positives, what were the things that I could look forward to, what were the thoughts that I wanted to have take up space in my mind about going on this Mallorca retreat. And I was able to flip those thoughts into the excitement of going. And we ended up having a really fantastic trip. So what I did is changed my thoughts. I didn't need the trip to be fantastic before I changed my thoughts. I changed my thoughts first. And I can tell you, we really had a magical experience. The way that the ladies connected and had some really unique connections and experiences and synchronicities was quite spectacular. And I don't think that could have happened if I had gone into it with a lot of doubt. So think about, I want you to write down in your paper, what are some of the feelings and thoughts you had during 2019 that shifted, that you would like to celebrate? What are the wins? I'll give you a few moments here to write those down. Now, I really want to call out to you and have you write something in the chat box, but I'm going to share with you, I can't quite figure out how to find that when I'm in the shared screen mode. So write it down on the side, and then when I come back from the shared, actually you could probably still put it in the chat box. And then when I come back from the shared screen, I should be able to see that. Because I'd really like to see some of the feelings and thoughts that you are celebrating that shifted in 2019. Now, recognize and notice if those gremlins come in and they want to start pulling you away from the positive, and they start saying, yeah, but then this didn't happen or that didn't happen. Just let them, in fact, just talk to them, tell them they can go take a break, they can go take a nap, they can go sit in the corner, because we're not paying attention to them right now. Right now, we're letting ourselves feel the celebration and the wins along the way. Okay, take a deep breath, and we're going to shift to the next circle. This circle is the external self. This is about accomplishments and achievements. Taking a look back, once again, go back to 2019. I like starting in January at the beginning of the year so that you can then just gradually move yourself forward throughout the year. What were some of the accomplishments and the achievements that you experienced that really were celebratory and felt like a great win? Go ahead and write those down. You can use the sequence of the year to help you remember. When I was going through this process, I actually looked through the calendar on my phone to help me remember some of the things that I experienced along the way. So if you want to pull out your phone and look at your calendar to help you remember some of the things that you did, that could be a really helpful tool. And as you're writing this down, this is really fun. As you're writing this down, let yourself feel the joy and the excitement of having completed that. Imagine it as if it's happening right now. So if I go back to the experience of going to Mallorca, I can imagine being on my bike, seeing the ocean, palm trees, it's warm, the roads are butter smooth, and the more detail I can use, the easier it is for me to really relive that and really feel that. There's this really interesting thing that happens in the brain. It cannot tell the difference between what you're telling it is happening and what's happening in the moment. So if you tell your brain that achievement is happening right now, it will begin to refuel those chemicals in the body. Your cells will begin to vibrate as if that moment was happening right now. It's a pretty cheap and easy way to go on a journey, isn't it? That's the beautiful power of visualization. I love visualization. It can take you to really magical places in a very short period of time. You don't have to get on a plane. You don't have to buy a ticket. You don't even have to pack a bag. You can get all the feel good just from the thought of it, just from the visualization of it. So as you are reviewing these external self accomplishments and achievements, letting yourself relive those, I want to invite you to go back and relive those often. This is how we continue to build and fuel our inspiration. And then we don't need force and effort to get motivated. We are already inspired from the inside. Inspired is in spirit, inside. So when we create that energy from within, there's no external force or motivation that's required. It's already coming up and out. So one of the ways you can do that, this is just a little tip if you want to write this down on your paper, is go back and look at your pictures. And we're all so great at taking pictures on our phones right now. One of the beautiful things about technology has made that so easy. Go back and look at your pictures often. Let yourself relive those experiences. I have to say, I'm not as good at this as my Charlie is. He goes back and looks at his videos and his pictures a lot. Especially when he's having sort of a low energy day, and he uses those to really boost up his energy. So put that little tip down on your paper. Go back and do that on purpose. So let me say a little bit about doing things on purpose. Manifestors, deliberate manifestors, do things like this on purpose. They don't wait for it to just happen. They don't wait for it to happen and reflexively react to it. They get out in front of it. They get out in front of possibly having low energy or getting into a low mood. They do things for themselves that keep their energy high and keep themselves inspired. That's what we're talking about here is deliberate manifestation. In order to deliberately manifest, you have to keep your energy at a higher vibration. And if that sounds kind of airy-fairy to you, the vibration thing, we can talk more about that. But every single thought has a vibration. Every single emotion has a vibration. Every single movement has a vibration. And there are lower vibrations and higher vibrations. And it's those higher vibrations that are going to help us feel like we are thriving. When we are thriving, those vibrations continue to vibrate vibrations vibrate at a higher level. And that's what we're going for. We could have an external world that is going to pot, but if our internal world is vibrating at this higher level, it doesn't matter what's happening in the external world. It's really cool. I promise. This really works. Stay with me. We're going to continue to practice it. Okay. Next circle of life. This is the next perimeter, and this is self with friends and family and community. Looking back on 2019, what are you celebrating? What are some of the wins? What are some of the fun things that you experience in this circle of self with family and friends and community? Go ahead and write those down. What were some of your really fun experiences? Did you go to an awesome concert? I went to a couple of concerts at Red Rocks, my favorite venue. It's outside. It's absolutely gorgeous. Those are, I don't even care what the music is that's playing. It's just such a fantastic experience. And certainly going with friends is a highlight as well. What experiences did you have with your family that you really enjoyed? Now notice, family is a big trigger. And again, it doesn't mean that you're broken if that happens. Family is a big trigger for those negative gremlins to come in and set up shop. So notice if that happens. And right now, you're practicing pushing them aside. You're only focusing on the wins and the celebrations. And then how about community? What wins and celebrations did you have with community? Did you get involved with your literal community, with maybe the city that you live in, or a city nearby, or the state that you live in? Or could it be the metaphoric sense of community? You feel like you're supported and surrounded by a community of people, of like-minded people that help you to feel heard and seen and accepted. What are the wins and celebrations in all of these categories? Friends and family and community. Again, much like the achievements and the accomplishments from the previous circle, really let yourself feel it as if it's happening right now. Let yourself feel it. Let each of those cells in your body vibrate as if that experience is happening right now. I happen to know somebody on the call here tonight had 2 weddings this summer, 2 family weddings. This might be a nice time to think about that. Celebrate those wins. Okay. Take a big, deep breath as we go into our next circle. This is our final circle, and this is self in the world. Self in the world. So what would that mean? This would be celebrations and wins of impact that you've had on the world. I can tell you, last year, I don't feel like I had impact on the world at all. I did do some international travel. So if I slow down enough and really let myself feel it, I had some really great connections with people that were definitely out in the world. And I think there was an impact there. But this also might look like giving back to a charity. A couple years ago, I did some work with an orphanage in Haiti, so that would be an example, but that wasn't in my 2019, so I wouldn't add that to my list. But take a look at what your experience out in the world was. What celebrations and wins do you have there? Go ahead and write those down. And again, let yourself relive those as you're writing them down. Now I want to check in with you. Check in with your posture right now. If you're sitting down at a table, are you bent forward? Is your breath shut off? Do you have a hunchback? Is your chin tucked in so you can't breathe very well? Are you sitting upright in a sort of a power position. Power position is one in which you can breathe fully. Your breath can expand easily. You can exhale easily. Your shoulders are relaxed. Your neck is supported. Your posture makes a tremendous difference in the way you are experiencing the moment. Partly because if you're slumped over, you're shutting down your breath, which feels very limiting and small. Go ahead and set yourself up well to be in a posture of power as you're reviewing 2019, bringing in big, full, deep breaths. And notice, once again, if you have some gremlins, like I had some gremlins come in when I did this. They were like, well, you didn't have any kind of impact on the world last year. And boy, you're selfish. You really should be doing more. You know, the shoulds are gremlins, by the way. Here's where we can shift that. How do we shift shoulds into inspirations? We can go, oh yeah, wow, I just recognized that gremlin should voice. You know, I really would like to have an impact in the world. Wow, this helps me remember that I really liked having an impact in the world. In 2020, I'm going to go out and I'm going to find something in a way that lights me up. It doesn't feel like it's a really huge stretch, unless you're up for that big stretch, but I'm gonna have an impact on the world. I'm gonna find something that I can contribute my time or my money or my efforts towards. Yeah, that would really, ooh, like even thinking about that lights me up. So see how we change the shoulds? I want to talk with you just a little bit, as long as I'm on that line, about contrast. Contrast are those situations in life that don't necessarily feel good. These can feel like the negative experiences, or they can feel like places you don't want to be or emotions you don't want to have. What happens when we get those is that typically, if you're unaware of your thoughts, is we add judgment onto those experiences. And once we add judgment, our energy or vibration begins to get smaller and smaller and smaller and more and more and more and more and more and more slow, until we're in paralysis, because now we feel really crappy about ourselves. So here's something I want you to consider doing when you're experiencing contrast. I'm going to go ahead and come out of my shared screen here. When you experience contrast, really turn up the volume. So let me use that experience of wanting to have a greater impact out in the world. The contrast is, oh, I should be giving more to the world. And that doesn't feel good. I feel lazy or self-centered or small. And when I shift that and I go, well, what is that contrast all about? I can go, you know what? It's because I have felt the alignment and the alivening when I am out in the world and I make some kind of commitment or sorry, I'm losing my words, some kind of contribution. That feels really good. So here's what happens with contrast. Contrast is so cool. We typically don't like it when it happens, but in the end, it is our best friend because it tells us what we don't want. I feel really, really lonely. I feel really, really isolated. This doesn't feel good at all. I feel like nobody likes me. I feel like nobody cares if I'm lonely. I've been spending all this time by myself. That's contrast. So here's what you do. Contrast. Hello. I see you. I hear you. I recognize that you're just here to tell me that there's something going on here that I don't like, that I don't want. All right, what I'm realizing is that this sense of loneliness, this contrast is telling me I really do want to be around people. So I'm going to make a shift. I'm going to put some effort and attention and energy into building more community rather than letting yourself negatively spiral down into the abyss and going back to bed, pulling the covers up over your head and saying, letting those gremlin voices take over and say, oh, I just suck and I have no friends. No, no, be the deliberate manifester and go, okay, contrast, what is this? What is it that you want me to know? What is it? Because I'm going to make a difference. I know that the story isn't true. I know the story is just BS. I'm instead going to take this under my control. I'm going to take the reins in my hands. I'm going to become the captain of my ship, and I'm going to ask the questions. I'm going to get really curious. What is this all about? And how can I turn this around to make it work better for me? Okay, so there's my little spew on contrast. It's really powerful. It can be really uncomfortable. I recognize that. And yet you can make it one of your best friends when you start to look at it in ways that it's really just showing up to show you that you've got something you don't want. And when you get curious and you get brave and you get courageous and you get real and you get really authentic and you let yourself come out of your head and down into your body and really get that authentic alignment, then you get the true answers. Get the true answers that say, oh, I get it. Yeah, that's just an old pattern. That might just be those old synapses that are so worn in that make it super easy to think that way. But you know what? Being the deliberate creator that I am, I'm going to change that up. I don't want to live that way. I know my brain is malleable until the day I stop using it. And so I'm going to use it to my benefit. How's that sound? How's that feel? It feels a lot better, doesn't it? Okay, everybody. I am back in with the screen, the chat. So I want you to go ahead and write down in the chat box a question that you might have or some thoughts or feelings that you find that you repeatedly have and you want to get rid of, or some of those gremlin voices, and some celebrations that you had from your 2019. What are some of the celebrations you've had in 2019 that felt really good to go back into and think about tonight? Go ahead and put those in the chat box. I'd like to see them. I'm going to take a little drink of my tea right now as you're writing. Ah, yeah. Yeah, so getting control of your schedule. This is really important. I love how something this, it seems simple, but sitting down and having conversation with your family members and really getting in control of your schedule will help you to create those and take those small steps required in order to develop manifestation. Absolutely. And sometimes literally it doesn't have to be a lot of time. I think a lot of times we get overwhelmed and we think it has to be, you know, a half hour a day or an hour a day to create organization. Sometimes it can literally be 5 minutes, and it's 5 minutes done consistently over 5 days. All of a sudden you have 25 minutes that you didn't take earlier, and you now have a more organized schedule and a better way in which you get to talk about what is it that we really want to experience this year. Yeah. One more thing I want to talk about when you're thinking about developing something new, and that is to let yourself get into the feeling. And that's one of the reasons why when we were doing this review, I was asking you to really feel the review. It's because your feelings and your emotions have more energy and more power than your thoughts do. So let yourself get into the feeling. Here's what I would ask you, because you know this is leading into what you want to do with your 2020. I would ask you, what do you want to feel in 2020? What do you want to feel? Yeah. Do you want to feel the sensation of adventure, achievement, connection? When you let your feel be your lightning rod or your compass, all of those other little pieces will start to fall into place. When you let your feel be the place from which you decide a direction or make a decision on doing something, all of the other little decisions are easily come into place. This is what we commonly do. Instead, we let ourselves get into our head and we start weighing things out right and left. And then we get crazy. It's like a tennis match. I bet you've had some of those experiences. Well, maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do that. Maybe I should do that. Blah, 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 blah. If you experience yourself doing that, do the preparation that we did at the beginning. Like shake out your body, take a couple deep breaths, stomp your feet, settle into your breath, sit down, go inside and ask, what do I want to feel? As opposed to what do I want to think? It's what do I want to feel? Yeah. All right. So I hope that you got some good insights here as we're starting to wrap up our webinar tonight. I told you I was going to show you how to think differently and how to set yourself up so that you are able to manage those negative gremlins, how to believe in the power of thought, how to move out of unmanifested desire. I hope that some of these tools were helpful for you. If it went kind of fast and you're like, I'm not exactly sure where it landed, go back and watch it again. You're going to get the recording. We're going to send this out to you. Some of you are watching this as a recording because you weren't able to be here live with us. Thanks so much for coming in and watching it. And like I said, you're going to have the recording, so you're going to be able to go back and watch it again. And my suggestion is to go back and watch it again and pause it when you get to do your writing. And really let yourself get clear. What are those celebrations? What are those wins? And oh my gosh, that feels so good. Oop, there's that gremlin. You might write a little note. You could write a word or two about the gremlin, but don't give it your attention. Write a word or two so you can come back to it and go, what's the contrast here? What's the contrast? And then you can work with that going into 2020. This contrast is helping me see that I want more blank in my life. I want more connection. I want more fitness. I want more adventure. I want more thriving, whatever that might be. But you're not giving it the attention in the voice that the gremlin likes to give it, like, oh, you suck. You shouldn't. Here you go again. You have that same goal for 3 years in a row and you haven't done. That talk is no longer allowed. Absolutely, line in the sand saying, not allowed on my shift. Not allowed on my ship. Oh, so, all right. Feel free to continue to write down any questions or thoughts that you might have. Also, feel free to reach out to me if you'd like. You have my email. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. And what I want to invite you to is if you are excited about continuing to do this kind of work and see how it has pre-paved your 2020, I'm inviting you to a 2-hour online workshop that I'm going to be offering next weekend. Trying to get back to here. So I'm not sure if you can see that. I got to go back here and there we go. I'm going to just show you this slide. So next Saturday, not this Saturday, but next Saturday, I'm offering a 2-hour live online workshop all about pre-paving and setting up your 2020. So the material that you got tonight and the work that you did tonight was the perfect preparation for going into this workshop. And that workshop is actually going to take you forward into growth and expansion. So what this workshop is all about is giving you more tools to set yourself up to be that deliberate manifester. It's giving you tools to say goodbye to all of those old mental thoughts about, I told you I couldn't do that, or I told you I couldn't achieve that goal, or whatever those limiters might be. This is the opportunity to continue to pre-pave those neural networks so that it's easier and 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 continues to be easier and easier to think the thoughts that are going to set you up for inspiration versus force and effort. It's going to help you up-level your New Year's resolutions. A lot of people have problems with the whole term New Year's resolutions. I don't have a problem with them so much. Unfortunately, they get a bad rap, but I think they just get a bad rap because people tend to say, they kind of flippantly say New Year's resolutions, and then they're literally gone. They're off track within 3 weeks. But typically that's because they set themselves up too high and they forgot to do the pre-planning like we just did. So you did your pre-planning. Now we're going to up level those quote unquote New Year's resolutions and put them into passion-driven desires. Like, really, what do you want to feel in 2020? I want to feel passionate and thriving in 2020. Well, what does that look like? And then we'll take a look even at, well, what are some of the action steps then? Like, if I want to feel really adventurous in 2020, what would I do? Maybe I would take a scuba diving trip. Oh, wow, I've always wanted to do that, but I've always said that, and now I don't really know how to make that happen. So then you just shut it down, right? Once you go into the how of anything, it shuts down the dream. So I'm going to teach you how to not go into the how to not shut down the dream, and how to take small steps that you celebrate and you count as wins along the way. Because what does that do? It builds your inspiration, right? Inspiration from the inside versus motivation and force from the outside. The other thing that this workshop is going to do is help you get out of your head and get into your body so you can create clear decisions based on your internal satisfaction rather than external results. One of the biggest mistakes we make in life is we wait for those external results in order to feel good, and it's such a mistake. We want to feel good first. Feel good first. In the webinar, we're also going to discover how to tap into flow so that everything doesn't have to feel so effortful. We're also going to create your 2020 word. I think this is really, every year I do this, it's really important to come up with what your word is. It just gives you that anchor from which to make some of your decisions and your actions throughout the year. It's really fun and it's really exciting to find what that word is. There's a whole process that helps you narrow it down to that word. So I'll walk you through that process. It might be a phrase, it might be a song, or a mantra. So we'll see what that ends up being for you. It's going to be different for everybody. So in that 2-hour workshop, you get the 2-hour workshop. Again, this is going to be live. It also will be recorded so you can watch it afterward, or if you can't be there live, you can come back and watch it on your schedule. You'll also get an electronic workbook that I've created. It's called Both Eyes Open. And this has a lot of really awesome leading questions that are going to help you prepare. And I'll email that to you when you sign up. You'll be able to use that as your preparation for the workshop on that Saturday. I'm also opening up a private Facebook group. And the minute you sign up for the workshop, you'll be invited into that Facebook group so you can start asking questions right away. You might be like, hey, Jill, what was that pre-paving thing you were talking about? I don't really know anything about that. Can you give me some greater insight on that? Or you might say, hey, I had some roadblocks going on. I don't really know how to get through them. We might be able to give you some insight on that through the Facebook group. Now, tonight, and all the way through tomorrow night, Friday night at midnight, I am offering a fast action bonus. So if you register before tomorrow night, Friday night at midnight, you'll also receive a free 30-minute private coaching call with me. And in this call, this is a $200 value, but in this call, we're going to dive right in. I'm going to ask you what's going on, what are your celebrations, what are your wins, where are some of your roadblocks, and I'm going to dive right in and give you at least 2 or 3 action steps that you can take that will help get you through or help take you that next step towards getting out of that roadblock so that you're setting up your 2020 in really, really amazing, fun, thriving ways. And it's called Light Your 2020 on Fire. I want you to go into this next year really feeling like you're on fire and you're in charge, you're in control. all hands on deck. You're the captain of your ship. So this workshop, if you're interested, it's only $47. I'm giggling because it's a 2-hour workshop and you're getting all these other really awesome things, and it's only $47. So it certainly isn't the investment that would ever hold you back. It might not be right for you if you're not ready to really step up and take your life by the reins. But if you are, I'd love to have you on there. I'd love to work with you. I'd love to have you on that private call for 30 minutes so that we can really create some momentum. It's really all about momentum. You know, once you get that boulder moving off the top of that cliff, it just keeps going and going and going and going. But sometimes it takes a little bit of extra effort to get that thing moving. And that's what this private call can do for you, is get that momentum going. So if you are interested in joining me on this 2-hour live online workshop next Saturday, you can go right away to this link. You'll want to write this down because it's not a live link. You won't be able to click on it, but it's my website, which is jilmsummers.com /light your 2020. And that will take you right to the registration page. You'll sign up there, you'll get confirmation, and then you'll be able to really enjoy that private coaching call. So, all right, I'm going to stop my screen share and I'm going to come back with you here. I want to thank you again so much for being with me tonight. And I'm excited that you've taken this time to review your 2019. And I hope that you're excited even more for igniting your 2020 and getting it on fire. Have a fantastic evening, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.